let's head to Knoxville and say hello. Oh,
Georgie, how we doing?
no, let's hear the rest. Let's hear the rest of it.
I was picking along, man.
So can you do the song?
Oh, I was doing the song, yeah, but now I'm not, I'm just
We need to hear it.
me. I'm just here
We
being
need to
me,
hear
my
your
friend.
we need to hear your talent, Hoss. Let's hear it.
I agree.
We're all gonna
let's
get together one of these days, Kelly. I'm gonna have you and George like Morgan Wallen had those guys backstage here today. And we're gonna get the hype going.
Well, we're together right now. We want to hear it.
No.
Oh, wow. So, okay,
Wow.
a couple of dumb questions before we get to the real meat of it all.
Yeah.
Anybody in the traveling party see anything that suggested that Stoops and Heupel privately met?
No, I don't have any information to that of anything like that at all, George. Heupel made that as much of a business trip as possible. And his kids, when they gave him the game ball afterwards, his kids understood sort of what that was about. But everybody I talked to during the week said it was remarkable how poised he was in terms of how he kept the focus on what it should have been on, which was the game itself.
Yeah. What was the show like afterwards?
Oh, it was so fun, George. So fun. Now, it was weird because some people were not happy because they didn't like the fact that some people thought Tennessee stepped off the gas, which I didn't understand because the only way they had to play the game was the way they played the game. You have an opponent in front of you that can't score. Why would you take chances? Why would you ever risk anything if you have an opponent in front of you that cannot get a first down against your defense?
You know, it's amazing, Tony, when you sit here and you see what used to be superpowers like Oklahoma, Auburn, kind of Florida, reduced to sort of football rubble because they don't have a quarterback.
Florida State.
Florida State's a great example. I mean,
1 year later.
Yeah, I mean, there are 4 or 5 big ones out there that would die, for instance, to have Diego Pavia at Vandy. You put him on any of those teams. Isn't that crazy?
Vanderbilt, Missouri, totally on the ropes. The thing about the Oklahoma quarterback, the kid that started the game, that's a great advertisement. And on the pro level, the kid in Jacksonville is a great advertisement for, hey, it's good to have a good quarterback and invest money in them. But if you don't have an offensive line, you can forget about it. The kid at Oklahoma the other night, George, didn't want anymore. And you guys tell me, Kelly, you've been involved in a lot of football games, and I've watched enough to be a complete degenerate. I mean, hell, I watch the spring leagues. I've never seen anything like I watch 1AA football all the time, and I watch it all. I've never seen a team turn a ball over like the Vols did twice, and the other team turn it right back over to them on the subsequent play. And I've been watching football a long time. They had no choice but to get the kid out of the game when he did that, when he threw that backward lateral. First of all, it was a stupid play. They had no choice, right?
I've never seen that before in my life. I'm like you. I've never seen it, but he just like he's in it. Like I don't know. I was talking to my son the other day. You guys got a quarterback. The good teams have quarterbacks. It's amazing when I grew up watching the SEC, like it was all about running backs. It was all about controlling the ball. And now if you don't have a quarterback, you can't win games. The NFL's money has come down with the NIL and stuff like that. But also like it's a quarterback driven league in the NFL. Now it's a quarterback driven league in college. If you don't have one, you're behind the 8 ball.
And if you have one, you have a pulse. Look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to be a dangerous team to a lot of people, and they have a credible football team around them. They're not great, but they're good enough. Tennessee, Nico hasn't even scratched the surface of what he's going to be. Like the other night, I wrote in my blog today, I talked to a couple sources around the program, and they say that he was having trouble with recognition with what Oklahoma was doing. And it happened almost from the very beginning. Like, they came out in a scripted set and popped the ball out in the flat against a 5-man box where they should have run the ball there. And he didn't count. He did an audible out of it. And, from there, it was just like, and then when it came time to the RPOs, which generally he's pretty good at, like we've talked about how he's a perfect quarterback for that offense. But when it came to the RPO time, he was having trouble with recognition. Do I keep it? Do I throw it? They felt like there were plays we made downfield, but he was just kind of off balance the whole time, which is sort of what a coordinator can do. And Oklahoma, guys, I'm going to tell you something. I think they're going to lose 4 or 5 games easily before it's over here. They have an elite national championship level defense. That's what they have. And they don't have a quarterback play.
They don't scare anybody on the other end.
Nobody.
So tell me this. Tennessee's got an open date, and it's easy to say, well, they're just going to kick back and relax, which is part of that. From a coaching staff standpoint, what things do you think they're trying to achieve before they go to Arkansas?
Their offensive line has to get healthy again, and they've got to clean up their running game. They weren't happy with their entire offensive line the other day against the run. They were surprised. Look, Oklahoma did the Georgia thing to them, which is they only played 5 in the box. And at most 6. They would shade a 6th, but for the most part, 5. And Tennessee had trouble running against the 5, which is what Georgia does to you. I mean, that's what conventionally, that's why Georgia has been able, the only team really in the SEC that's been able to basically swat Tennessee away like a bug when they've gotten on the field with them in the Heupel era. Oklahoma defensively the other night, the way I look at that game, personally, I think it's really good that Oklahoma had a quarterback that turned it over twice in a row, because if they'd have cashed that in and scored 10 points there, that would have been a really interesting game with the way Tennessee was struggling with them on the other side of the ball. That could have been a game way into the 4th quarter. So Tennessee's got to tighten up the running game, and they've got to get Nico more comfortable. And they have to figure out a way to get him more comfortable. The other thing they've got to do, George, is they've got to start identifying deep threats and using those guys, which I think they will against Arkansas. I think Arkansas will score points on Tennessee because I think it's the way they play, but they're going to give up a lot of passing yards to Nico as well. So, the schedule's going to lighten up here for a couple of games until Alabama comes to town. They'll have Arkansas and then Florida, which I can't believe I'm saying lighten up, but a look ahead line that Florida game, George, is like around 20 points.
And in a related note, Mississippi State's a 38-point dog at Texas. God.
I mean,
crazy.
Go ahead.
Here's the thought, Tony. Oklahoma's really good defensively. You and I totally agree there. Mm-hmm. What if they still had the kid that took off to Oregon? Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, that's right.
And well, what people are forgetting there?
There's probably a reason. There's probably a reason why he left.
And it's Jeff Lebby. When Jeff Lebby left, Gabriel probably said, "I'm out of here."
Well,
plus, from an Oklahoma standpoint, they had a redshirt freshman, and in this day and age, who was ranked right there with Nico, in this day and age, and Kelly, you know this about with your son playing that sport and having played that position. When you get one of the guys that's like way up here, whether they're way up here or not, if they're ranked way up there, it's the same thing in the fans' mind. And from Oklahoma's perspective, I think it was time to start the clock with that kid and let him play, whether he was ready or not. Obviously, with the offensive line they have, big mistake. Big mistake with the offensive line they have, because now the question becomes, where does that kid end up in the SEC next year? Or does he end up at a place like Florida State? Because that kid's going to end up somewhere. He will not be Oklahoma's quarterback. Once they pulled him off the field, that was it for him.
So I got one more.
You talking about Jackson Arnold?
Yes,
Tony?
Jackson Arnold will be somewhere next year.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I got one more, and then I'll turn it to Kelly.
Sure.
Is this a true statement? The only team in college football that's better than Tennessee today is Texas.
I don't know. I think the Vols are really, really, really good. I think they're in the class of a Texas, of a Georgia, of an Ohio State, of an Alabama. I think the top 5, as it's currently constituted, I think any of those teams could win it. I think it's going to be interesting to see Ole Miss and Oklahoma on the same field in a couple of weeks, because I have a feeling that Ole Miss is going to score more points than Tennessee did. I do not believe in the Miamis of the world, the Oregons of the world, the Penn States of the world, the Utahs of the world. I think Tennessee's right pushing on that upper tier. Are they the best? No, I mean, look, here's the truth. So far, the Vols, the schedule looked a lot tougher on paper than it's been. I mean, that's just but they've done really well, and they've broken the spirit of 2 teams now that they've played. They broke the spirit of that quarterback from NC State with all those rotating defensive linemen and the way they hit him, and he was gone the next game. I mean, he hadn't played. And the other night, the Arnold guy literally didn't want anymore. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. At the end of the first half, that kid was unplugged and he was done. So
mentally toast.
Really talented. This team is really hitting hard too, guys. That's the other thing. On defense the other night, those first 3 or 4 plays, we saw Oklahoma guys, going to the sidelines and holding this and holding that. And I'm going, hey, this kid Tennessee got from MTSU launched on that ball carrier, that first play of the game, and smashed him right in front of their bench. I'm going, whoa. By the way, look-ahead line, Tennessee and Florida is 17. And a look-ahead line, which is what you're talking about with the top teams, Tennessee at Georgia, the look-ahead line in that game is 9.5. And the other spread, Tennessee and Alabama in Neyland Stadium in about a month, is a straight pick 'em right now on the look-ahead, George.
Ooh. Kelly, a lot of Wow.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, as usual, George takes my questions, but I do want to ask this. You know what? You know what impressed me the other night, Tony, and I know y'all talked about this probably all over the radio the other night. But you're talking about fans being upset about them not scoring, but I was really impressed with Josh Heupel's patience, because when everybody thinks that Tennessee is this huge, and they can score points at will, but the other night, there's nothing like being a quarterback. I've been in games like that, or being a head coach where the other team's offense is inept. They cannot score, and if you don't screw it up, you're going to win the football game. And a lot of times, coaches' egos get involved with that, and there's like, yeah, but we score all these points, we're going to throw the ball all over the place. Well, when you got a 5-man box, and they were trying to force with DBs, which is not a great deal, but they did a pretty good job at the beginning of the game. But I was just impressed with the patience. He stayed with the run, and you can't find a lot of coaches, especially his age, to be disciplined like that.
Didn't make it about him at all.
No.
Because if he was going to make that about him, he would have said, I'm going to show Bob Stoops, who's sitting up in that box, and we're going to put 60 on him tonight.
That's right.
And the backstory on that was Tennessee had an offensive tackle who, Lance Hurd, who they paid a lot of money to from LSU, who they thought was going to be on the trip and decided he couldn't go at the last minute, whatever, and he didn't make the trip. And then they get down there, and John Campbell, the other tackle, he comes up kind of gimpy pretty early in that game, which now you've got 2 positions destabilized. And if you did that to any team in this league, any team, Georgia, Alabama, anybody, and you put them on the road against a defense like that, you'd be holding on for dear life offensively, which is what Tennessee was. And then you throw in the fact that you've got a redshirt freshman quarterback, talented as he may be, and he's extremely talented, who you got a guy across the way from him who's really, really good at disguising what he does. And that was a mixture that said, let's run this ball, let's shorten this game, and let's get out of here with a win, which is exactly what Tennessee did. When they went up 19-3, that game was over.
And I was listening to an interview the other day too, and we all know that Josh Heupel's getting it. All these kids want to come play for him. He knows they got a high-powered offense. They throw the ball around. They can run it too. I mean, they're really balanced. People don't understand that, but they're pretty balanced. But if you look at what they're doing offensively, and then he comes on the radio and he goes, "Hey, this is the University of Reggie White, of Eric Berry, of Al Wilson. We want to be an elite defense as well." And then you look over there on that side of the ball, and their defensive line, good gracious, man, they've got waves and waves and waves that they can keep them healthy. They can keep them rested. They can just bring them in. And those guys were getting after it the other night. So I'm more impressed with the defense than I am the offense right now.
And I think that's right. I think the defense is ahead of the offense, which I don't know. Did I think I would say that right now? Not really.
Yeah.
But Tennessee hasn't been able to have against the teams that could play, to have the wide receivers running wide open like they were in the kind of the early Heupel years. It's a little different now. Because teams are choosing to take that away from them and live with you running the ball. So Tennessee stays in 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends. And they just, broke the will of that team the other night. And then on defense, hit them so hard. I mean, I can't believe how hard and how physical Tennessee was with that team the other night. And Oklahoma people are extremely knowledgeable. So I had fans reporting back to me that, after the game, Oklahoma fans were like, we haven't seen somebody come into our building and put a whipping like that on us in a long, like pre-Bob Stoops days here, like the John Blake era is, the last time they saw somebody just come in there and physically beat on them like that. It's been a while. I mean, those people aren't used to seeing that. So interesting times, guys. Very interesting.
So what do you think about, you guys lost some pretty good running backs last year. And now you got the Dylan Sampson kid and you got the Bishop kid.
Yeah.
I mean, they are really they're, I thought since they lost so many guys last year, they would kind of be hurting in that area. But you look at Dylan Sampson, man, he's really good. And the Bishop kid's really good as well. So it doesn't look like they've missed a beat.
No, not at all. In fact, the other night, it was more their run blocking at the point of attack than it was those guys finishing runs downfield, because both those guys finished runs. I mean, you didn't end up with the gaudy stats that, backs do sometimes in games, because when you're playing Oklahoma, you're going to get 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 here, and then you're going to get 1 or 2 or go backwards. I mean, that Oklahoma bunch is not to be trifled with. Up front, their front 7. And as I told you guys last week, the thing that was impressive for me as I studied them is they have a great player at every level. They've got a great defensive lineman, a great linebacker, and a guy in their secondary, that safety, who's unreal. So, that's the recipe for take your medicine. Don't put your freshman quarterback, like you were saying, in spots where he's going to turn the ball over, and get the heck out of there.
Well, what do you think about I think I asked you this last week, but I'm going to ask you again. After 4 weeks of the season, what do you think about the SEC as a whole right now?
I think it's really interesting. I think there are several teams that have, like, if you throw that graphic up again, George, I think there's 6 teams alive for that playoff berth. Texas, Tennessee is alive. Alabama's alive. I think Missouri can feel like they're alive. I think LSU, if they could get their act together, could be alive. I mean, there are several teams at the top of this thing. Ole Miss is alive.
Yep.
That's 6 or 7 teams right there that still think they've got a lot to play for. And a bunch of those teams are going to play each other down the stretch here in the coming weeks, which is about to make this thing really interesting, because we might end up with a few 10-2 teams, several 10-2 teams. Who knows? And if that happens, then we're going to see some chaos here.
I just did this, and in fact, Billy, we may be changing a couple of things here in a minute because I've re-looked at it. I know you're excited about that. I would claim, Tony, if the committee had to make the decisions today,
Yeah.
there are 6 SEC teams that get in: Texas, Georgia, Bama, Missouri, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Now, a lot could change because a lot of them play each other.
Yeah, because they're going to play each other. And you look at it, Tennessee's got a very generous schedule this year. But if you go 10-2, that could play against you. Because, well, it just could. Then again, I got to see this committee keep a 10-2 Tennessee football team out of a playoff, because I don't believe they will.
They'll storm the Bastille. Okay. There is actually a person or two out there that has never heard all the fun you generate.
Right.
How do they hear you?
Man, we live in another world. And we call it tclub.team. Yes. And I'm on the air every day and enough to know better. Like today, for instance, right, George, we went till about 3:15 Eastern the other night. I didn't get to bed till 5. I look like, I look that way. And today I went into the show saying, okay, I'm on the radio for 2 hours. I'm only going to do a 10-minute overtime. So my wife, Laura's away. She was playing golf today somewhere across town. And I said, I'm going to be very disciplined. George, I was on for like an hour and 15 minutes after my show went off. Like, what am I doing? But I'm sick. I love this stuff. This college football is so fun. The game is so fun. This playoff thing adds another dimension to it. I think it's really interesting, George. And I'll tell you something else. Last week, watching Tennessee and Oklahoma play, which wouldn't have happened if it weren't consolidation, and watching Michigan and USC play in 2 consecutive windows last week, that's a pretty good sport.
It's pretty good.
We still have too many blowouts in this game. And I don't know why SEC teams are still playing these non-league games this week. Like, what are we doing? But that's another story for another day, I guess.
God bless you, El Monroe.
Thank you. tclub.team.
Yeah. Tony, it sounds like you've become a fan of Coach Banks. Thumbs up.
Hey, you were beating the drum for him last spring.
Oh, yeah, thumbs up. No, I wasn't. I just told you what I heard.
See you next week.
See you guys. Thanks.
See ya.
Oh, he is a trip. I love him.